Hi, everybody. Shari Pheasant here. And I want to talk to you about the 4 things you need to know. The 4 things you need to know that are happening to you right in your workplace and other people that maybe you're not even paying attention to because you don't recognize them or know what they are, right? Kind of like if you've never seen a Ferrari, you don't see them driving on the road. Once you've seen or driven in a Ferrari or your own one, you see them all. So I want to talk to you about double binds, microaggressions, negotiations, and positive and negative feedback. Microaggressions are when people are making comments that are negative to you in a very subtle way. Microaggressions happen on a daily basis, and when they are accepted and nothing's done about them, you start to actually absorb. Remember that subconscious brain that you have that says yes to everything? Your critical faculty is not always able to say no, especially when you're talking A, if it's yourself, I have a hard time saying no to. B, someone that you respect. C, someone who's in a position of authority that you have given that authority to. And so if you are getting microaggressed on, this may be sitting in the back of your subliminal and holding you back. So it's really important to understand what that looks like and have the skill set to do something about it. Number 2, double bind. A double bind is when you're stuck between 2 walls and there's no winning, right? This happens more often than you think. It happens quite a bit when people are gaslighting. They're creating a double bind for you that you can't get out of. So you can't win for losing. A good example of a double bind is when you are asked to make sure that you stick to your 1-hour lunch. Maybe it's been an issue. You've come back a few minutes late, and you need to start making sure that you leave on time and coming back on time because the other people in the office need you back at 1 o'clock for customer service. The double bind is when your boss says to you, you say, well, there's people coming in. Well, stay and work with them. Well, stay and greet them if they're right there and you're at the desk. So you end up leaving your desk at 12:10. And if you come back at 1:10, you're frowned upon because you're late. But in actuality, you took your hour. So that's a double bind. Like, I need to take my hour, but I'm not in the situation where I can take my hour because you don't want me to come back late and you don't want me to leave on time. So how am I supposed to make that work? There's a double bind. Stop and think. What double binds can you think of? All right. Number 3, negotiations. Negotiations happen daily. They happen not just when you're at review asking for a raise. They happen when you're asking for a position on a project, when you're asking for somebody to get something for you, when you're working with them on a project, when you're asking for information. Negotiations are something that happen. Gosh, you negotiate when your kids at dinner with what they're going to eat. You negotiate with your husband about where you're going on vacation. Negotiations happen daily. So what do your negotiation skills look like? Do you understand the different ways to negotiate, the different types of negotiations you find yourself in? Love to show you a little bit more about that. Look into negotiations. It's one of 4 things you need to know about your day-to-day, which brings us to number 4, positive and negative feedback. Believe it or not, both can be detrimental. If you give too much positive feedback, then people have this false sense of security about what is going on and how well they're performing. We do that a lot, especially in today's sensitive world. We tend to give people compliments overly, right? We give too many compliments, too much positive feedback so that they feel good. The problem with that is then you're creating an expectation that you're always going to do that. So if they're making a mistake and you need to correct that and you need to give them positive criticism, right, for that, and you avoid that by over complimenting them, then the criticism doesn't take hold. They keep doing the same thing. You keep having the conversation. You become frustrated. They become frustrated because they don't know what the problem is. They're just doing what has been done, right? And you're having the same conversations. So you really need to understand how positive feedback can affect a situation in a negative way. And then there's negative feedback. Difficult conversations, the things we avoid. I like to tell everybody that I don't believe communication is the problem. We've been saying that for 50 years. Communication is the biggest problem on a team. Communication is the biggest problem on a team. Communication is not the biggest problem on a team. The biggest problem on a team is not having the right conversation. Think about how more specific that is. It's about the right conversation. And there's 5 pillars of that right conversation that you need to know. It needs to be with the right person. There's ways that you can make sure you're talking to the right person. It needs to be at the right time. right? There are some times you just don't want to initiate certain conversations. And so you've got to be sensitive to understanding the energy and the situation around you to know when it's a proper time for a conversation. It needs to be about the right thing. So we need to be talking about the right things to the right people at the right time. And two more, in the right tone, right? In the right tone and with the right intentions. So texting, emailing about problems or issues, not a good thing, because somebody's going to read that in their own tone. Maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe they're insecure. So they're going to read your email or your text with their tone. So you want to make sure to have the conversations face to face, and you want to make sure to have the right tone, because you sure don't want to talk to them like this, because you're not going to help that conflict resolve at all, right? And then the right intentions. Why am I doing this? Remember, the why is beneath the water. So it's something that you don't necessarily see, however you feel it. Think about this statement. You don't always remember what people say, and yet you always remember how they made you feel, right? The right intention is what does that. Understanding yourself from the inside out and how people perceive you helps you clarify intentions and values in conversations. So make sure that you are aware of these 4 things around you. Learn something about it. If you're interested, I have a course on my online learning called The 4 Things You Need to Know About Your Day-to-Day, and it's $19.97. I have a course in my hub called 4 Things That You Need to Know. Get in there and grab it. I would love for you to learn a little bit more about the 4 things you need to know. I would like to help you with some tools that you can utilize so that those 4 things aren't holding you back. Remember, they're double binds, microaggressions, negotiations, and feedback. Shari Pheasant here with horsepower to help you succeed.